So this is Barry here with Wendy Wright, who is a professor of theology at Creighton University, and she is the author of the liturgical press book, The Lady of the Angels and Her City, and the subtitle is A Marian Pilgrimage. So thanks for being with us here, Wendy.
Thank you, Barry.
And we're here at the conference of the American Academy of Religion and Society of Biblical Literature today. I wanted to ask you about your book, which is a fascinating new book on Mary and her place in the spiritual landscape of Los Angeles. Is that a fair description?
Right. Okay. It is. It's also a microcosm in some ways of the entire American Catholic Church, although in distilled form. The story and the research that I did for this book really started as a personal pilgrimage. Although I've not lived there for 3 decades, I am a Los Angelino, and went back in a kind of pilgrimage mode, but soon discovered what I was really, really interested in is the many, many faces of Mary, and discovering not only Mary herself, but all of the persons who are captivated by her, who hold her close in their hearts. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles is a huge metropolitan region. It's known as a minority-majority region, city. So basically the Archdiocese, which serves about 4 million Catholics in 5 pastoral regions, has represented there a microcosm of the global Catholic Church. So basically, you don't have to go to Vietnam and Poland and Guatemala and the Congo. It's all there in Los Angeles. And I became fascinated, first of all, in finding out about all of these expressions of Mary and their various cultural and historical differences. And it became a kind of layered project. In other words, it was a personal pilgrimage. This is my hometown. My own story is inscribed in the landscape there. But it's also a story of the various communities that over the several centuries have come to Los Angeles, Catholic communities. That area is originally not only the indigenous people, but it was Spanish and Mexican, and before it was the United States. And so you have all of the people from the South at various times. You also have waves of immigrants from Europe in the middle or the beginning of the 20th and late 19th century. And more recently, you have huge influx of communities from Asia, Africa, and they're all there. And I became not only fascinated with the visual evidence of devotion, but it became possible to actually speak with people in rosary groups, people in Vietnamese communities that do block rosaries, Filipinos who hold these novenas to perpetual health. Certainly the Guadalupe presence in the Archdiocese is ubiquitous. And what became a fascinating experience for me was talking to people at all levels of the church, ecclesiastical hierarchy, pastors, sacristans, liturgical assistants, musicians, people in religious communities, the Vincentians, the Notre Dame sisters, people whose congregations are named for Mary. And it became really a heart pilgrimage. I have a deep drawing toward Mary, and the stories that people told about their own personal relationships as well as their community's relationships to Mary. The way that different devotions like the Immaculate Heart, how it's changed over the centuries, how it came from Spain, and how people prayed with it then and how people pray with it now. It's a very layered kind of story, which is at root my story and the story of the people in Los Angeles and the history of Catholicism in Los Angeles. But I think it really does speak to the pastoral dimension of today's North American church. The demographics is so different at this point than they were 30 or 40 years ago.
Okay.
And it was a wonderful way to come to know not only, I'm a member of the Catholic Church and there's this sort of diversity on the periphery, but in fact this is my church. This is, I am a member of a global church. And Mary is in many ways the presence, the symbol, that joins everyone together. You know, people, even in a very fractured landscape where maybe on the streets the Vietnamese and the Koreans and the people from Mexico or with Mexican background and African Americans are all at war with one another. The place they meet is their love for Mary in the Catholic Church. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, which I'm still holding in my own heart.
Okay. You mentioned you call it the visual evidence, of that devotion, and that's a neat aspect of this book. Is a lot of you explored a lot of the imagery, and there's some neat photography in the book, and that sort of thing. Can you tell me about that aspect of the book?
Yes. Well, when I first started going, I just went by myself to visit Marian parishes, visit Marian shrines, just to get a sense of the rich life that's there. And very soon it became clear to me that I needed to have somebody who was a real photographer, not just a snapshot photographer, who could do stained glass, who could do church architecture. And so Omaha photographer Dorothy Tuma went with me for 3 separate weeks at the end of the pilgrimage, and we went back to a lot of the places where I had visited, and she took some wonderful photos. And I have to say I am eternally grateful to Liturgical Press for really beautifully illustrating that dimension of the pilgrimage, because there are stories, there's history, there's prayer stuff, but without the visual, I don't think you would really get a deep sense of the marvelous ways that Mary is present in that diocese.
Okay. When I first learned about your book and began becoming familiar with it, I thought my initial impression was this is for someone who's familiar with Los Angeles and the Archdiocese, and I was very pleasantly surprised that as someone who's never even been to Los Angeles, I was very engaged, in reading through the book and the various chapters, because the way you present it, you don't have to know about. You don't have to have been at these different shrines and places. Can you tell me about the audience for the book and who might be interested in what you're offering?
Well, I like the way you posed the question in terms of it is a larger book. It became a larger book. I think it's really a book not only about the contemporary American Catholic landscape, but it's a book about the history of Catholicism coming to America as well. And so what you talk about is assimilated communities, the Italians, the Irish. There's evidence on the landscape there of how Mary has been and is present. Her dogmatic expressions are there, the Assumption, the Immaculate Conception. And so it is a book about Los Angeles, but as I said earlier, I think it really is a book about the American Catholic experience at this particular moment. So I would think, and the people I've talked to about the book, especially people in pastoral ministry who are confronting a changed landscape, how do we think about popular devotion? What do we do when 6 different language groups are here? And I'm not writing a how-to book, but on the ground with the stories, the pastors and the pastoral assistants and the sacristans and the people themselves, their stories are part of the story of what is actually happening out there. And people have been very excited about that. Just this is the reality of contemporary Catholic life.